Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Quad University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 25 of the subject of visual programming, in which we will discuss the network programming in C#.NET. And this is the introductory language about the network programming, where we will discuss some important classes of C#.NET for network programming. And after this lectures, the next lecture will be about the TCP/IP and UDP protocols. So there we will implement the TCP/IP and UDP protocols for the communication purpose. So for understanding the UDP and TCP/IP protocols, this basic and introductory lecture is very much important. This is the discussion agenda. It contains the topics of the C# network programming. Then we have the URI in the C#. These are important classes used for networks programming and DNS class in the C#.NET. Then we have the IP address information class in the C#.NET. And then we have internet connection active or not. Here we will make a program or we will develop a programs which will provides us information that whether the network internet connection is available or not. Then we will discuss IP addresses and also we will demonstrate a program which will find the IP address of your computer in the C#.NET. Now what is the networks programming and why we are using the networks programming? Basically network programming is used to write the network applications. Network application, as its names indicate, is used to connect multiple computer or two computers with each other. Or for example, to provide or transfer data from one computer to another computer, we use the networks programming here. So C# programming is the network programming in which the application is developed to access the network for downloading, uploading, video streaming and chatting applications, etc. So all these categories of informations are included in the networks programming, and in this lecture and in the upcoming lecture we will demonstrate all these things. Now the examples of the network programming is ranges from the ubiquitous web browsers such as the Internet Explorer. The Internet Explorer is one of the applications which provides you the networks application that will fetch the data from the outsource or data from the servers to your client computer. And then another program, for example, you receive the email from a remote servers, for example, to sending the or receiving the emails. And the network programming is used in the multiple softwares that control the spacecraft at NASA. For example, at NASA, when the data is communicated among different space shuttles or from the space shuttle to the ground station, then the network programming concept is used there. Now, the first concept in the network programming is the URI in C#. URI means Universal Resource Identifiers, and URIs provides an object for a Universal Resource Identifiers that is used to access the outside parts of the network programming. So URI provides an object representation of a universal resource identifier, and also it provides the easy access to the parts of the URI. For example, here you can see that this is the web address, and it is in fact here the URI creates the instance of the URI class, and it create a web request instance. For example, this is the web address http www.kust.edu.pk, and the object of URI represents the web address here. Now web request WR is equal to web request.create URI web. So here the request will be created from the www.kust.edu.pk when we want to access this websites and we have to access some parts of this URI, then we will use the web request. So web request for the informations that are passed through the constructor or through the function of the create functions here, and then the information from this website is accessed through the web request. Now this is the example of the URI. In this example, we have in fact a website that is kust.edu.pk, and that is in fact called to the constructor of the URI, and we have created the object here. So URI path is the object is equal to new provide the memory to the constructors URI, and the URI constructor takes the websites as a parameters. So it means that path is representation of this websites here. Now then we have console.writeLine path.port. Here first of all we want to access the port number of this website. So here path.port will print the port number of the kust.edu.pk. So console.writeLine means that it will be printed on the console function or on the console line. Next is console.writeLine path.host. It will print complete host address. Host address means that the complete URL here will be printed here. Next one is console.writeLine path.authority. Authority means that here with whom the authority of this URL or the URI is, and the authority is by itself the kust.edu.pk. That means that it has a specific domain that is a kust.edu.pk and specialized domain with the KUST university. So that's why authority will be printed here. Next is console.write and path.scheme. Path.scheme means that whether it is HTTP or HTTPS. Now here it is the HTTP, so that scheme is printed here, which is HTTP. And the next is console.writeLine path.is files. That means that this a file or a complete URL, but this is not file. So here the files parameter will be printed here because it is not a files, it is a URI. Means that it is not a PDF files. For example, sometimes we access a particular files from the networks, so that network's path is in fact a file here, and but this is not a file, this is a URI. So here the files will be provided here. Now this is the output. kust.edu.pk has the port number 80. Similarly, the host of the kust.edu.pk is this one, and also authority is this one, and scheme is HTTP, and is files here. So URI represents complete information about a URL. Next is the DNS. DNS means that domain name service. Domain name service means that it represents the particular domain here. Now DNS.getHostName, it is a function or a method. It gets the host name of your computer. When you want to get the host name through the DNS, that is through the domain name service, then you will use this function. For this purpose, we have using system.net package. This package is mandatory for this function. So using system.net contains the class of the DNS. Then we have namespace network programming. It is the namespace. Namespace means the collection of the multiple classes, and it also represents the project. Class program means that it is a program class. Here you can provide any name of the class, but it should be valid, and reserved words or keywords should not be used. Then we have the void main function. This is the static void main function. Static means exactly one copy of this function will be created. Void means it will not return anything, and main is the name of the function, and string args are the parameters that are provided to the function. This is the body of the void main function. First we have declared the string hostname. Hostname is a string variable, and DNS.getHostName function assigns the values to the host name. But what will contain in the DNS.getHostName? It will contain the local computer name or the computer name where uh, uh, the particular DNS has been stored here. So DNS.getHostName methods gets the host name of a local computer. Then we have printed the host name here by using console.writeLine function. Console.writeLine's host name plus host name. So here the host name will be printed here. Now when you will run and compile this application, what will be the output here? The output will be host name plus concatenation. Here plus will perform the concatenation, the computer name. So in case of my computer, the host name is desktop CLMU004. So this is the host name of my computer. Host name is very much important. For example, if you want to communicate with another computer, you need the host name or the IP address here. When you want to communicate through the LAN, then you need the host name here. So DNS.getHostName function will provide you the host name of your local computer. Now this is the another examples of the DNS. Here you need the using system.net and using system.net the network information libraries. Also these are called namespaces. Then we have the namespace console application 1 that represents the project name. Then we have class with the name of program. Program is the class name. And here we have the void main function. It is a static. Void main static means that exactly one copy will be maintained into the cache memory. Void means it will return nothing, and main is the name of the function, and string args represents command line arguments in the form of the string. So all these data will be stored in this array. Now here we have the for each loop structure. In the for each loop is a loop that is executed until the number of elements in the arrays, and the for each is executed here through the network interface, which is a built-in class. Net if is our object of this network interface class. In network interface that get all network interfaces. So here this array will stores all the network interfaces in net if object. So all network interfaces contains different information about the networking here. So if you are using your computer or your networks, so that represents all the information of your networks, and in fact that will be used in the communications for the network programming when you perform the TCP/IP or UDP communication. Now first we have the console.writeLine network interface. 0 means first parameters, there is only one parameters, comma net if dot name. So it will provide you the name of the network interface here. Now what will be printed here? This is the in fact the output. First all the network names will be printed, and network interface Wi-Fi, network interface loopback pseudo interface 1, and similarly here another network interfaces will be printed here by the first lines here. So network interface will be printed, and that is depending on network interface class, that how many network interfaces are here with us. All will be accessed through this for each loop and will be printed here. Next one is IP interface properties. It will represent the IP interface properties of your network, and it will contains all the IP properties, and that will be stored in the properties, and also these properties will be obtained through the network interface object here. Now there may be one or more properties for the IP interface properties, so that's where we have used the for each loop here again. So IP addresses will contain the IP addresses DNS in properties.dns addresses. So it will contains the IP addresses in that particular DNS address, and DNS address represents our computer, So basically all the IP addresses in our computer will be stored in the DNS and that will be printed here. So console.writeline DNS and then parameter 0 means that this will be pasted here or it will be copied here at that particular reference. So DNS represents the DNS of the computer, so which is the domain name services. Next, we have another for each IP address information. This is the IP address information, and it will stores any cost addresses in the of your computer. Here, the any cost means that when a single destination has the multiple routing paths. So any cost represents the any address of the single destination, and there can be multiple addresses here for one destinations. So all the any cost addresses will be displayed here to the any cost dot address property, and that will be pasted here. That means that it will be replaced here through this parameters. So all the any cost addresses will be printed here. Next is another for each loop. Here IP address information and multicast addresses will be in fact stored in here in the multicast objects, and that will be obtained in from the properties.multicast address. So multicast addresses are in fact those addresses view as multicasting. The multicasting is used for in datagram communication where the data are multiple packets are sent to the multiple host there, and multiple host gets multiple packets for the same data. Here the multicasting is provided. Multicasting, as its name indicates, that multiple hosts are communicated through the datagram protocols there. Next is another for each IP address information unicast in properties dot unicast address. Unicast means that only once or single casting is performed here. The unicast is used in IP version 4 and IP version 6 both, and it is used to send the data from one receiver or one sender to a one receiver. So that is the one to one communication. Means that one device can send data to one receivers only, and this is called a unicast address. So all unicast addresses are printed here. Now, what will be the output of this program when you compile and run this application? This is the output here, and you will provide the output into the console application. This is the unicast address, means that the address of my computer. Then network interface card. First one is Wi-Fi. Second network interface card is pseudo interface 1. Third one is Teredo tunneling pseudo interface, and next one is the ISA interface cards, and so on. So there are only 4 network interfaces here, and the DNS is this one, that is domain name services is this one. And then we have the multicast addresses. Multicast addresses are more than one. Then we have the unicast addresses, and then we have the again the multicast addresses for this interface, and similarly there is only 2 unicast addresses for this interface, and also we have the multicast addresses and unicast addresses for the Toronto tunneling pseudo interface, and also we have assertive interface with the DNS 192.168.0.1, and also we have one multicast and one unicast address here. So this is the output, and you have to analyze this output, that how you can access the computer through using that addresses like the unicast and multicast addresses here. So basically you can see that there are multiple interface classes, and each interface class has a multiple unicast and multiple multicast addresses here as well. Next one is the IP address information class in the C# The IP address information class in C# provides information about the network interface address. Network interface, as its name indicates, that will be the interface when we communicate with the other networks or with the other computer. So IP address information class returns information on the IP address that is assigned to the interface class here. First of all, we need the using system.net and using system.net.network interface libraries here. Then we have namespace console application ones. Namespace console application ones contains multiple classes, but here we have only one class program. Here we have the static void main string args function, which is the void main. So program execution is starting from the main function here. So here the network interface arrays is declares and the array name is adapters is equal to network interface dot get all network interfaces. So all the interfaces will be obtained here and that will be stored in the adapter array of the network interface arrays, and here it represents the object of the arrays. Now then we will use the for each loop because we have multiple adapters, so that's why network interface adapter in adapters. So all the network interfaces and that particular adapters will be obtained here. Now IP interface properties IP adapter properties is equal to adapter dot get all get IP properties. So it will obtain the all the IP properties, and that all IP properties will be stored here in this IP interface properties object. Also, all the IP address collection will be stored in the DNS service, and DNS services servers will be obtained from the adapter properties.dns addresses. So all the DNS addresses will be stored here in the DNS servers. Now, if DNS servers.com is greater than 0, means that if our DNS servers are available with us and their counting is greater than 0, that means that more than 0, then console.writeline adapters.description. So all the description about the adapters will be printed here. Again, we have the internal for each loop because there are multiple adapters, so that's why there is the internal for each loop, and every adapter has the IP address. So DNS in DNS server, so the all the DNS server IP addresses will be stored here DNS. Now console.writelines DNS servers, and there is the address 0, that means that this represents the subscripts here, comma DNS.to strings. So DNS.to strings will be stored here in this particular 0 subscripts, and that will be stored and printed, and then the empty lines will be printed here. Now, dear students, if you check the output here, so the output will be, we have real tech PCI family controllers, we have Microsoft Wi-Fi direct virtual adapters, then we have another remote NDS based internet sharing device 3 and so on. We have multiple adapters here. This one is the another adapters, that is the Microsoft ISA-type adapter 2. And every adapter has the DNS servers. DNS servers has the particular addresses. These are the hardware or interface addresses of the this DNS servers, which represents the FE family controllers. Now here is the Wi-Fi DNS, that is the adapter, and Wi-Fi has 3 DNS servers, and everyone has its own address here. Now, similarly, this is the internet sharing device number 3 DNS, in fact, controller or adapters, and it has only one DNS servers, and its IP address is this one 192.168.0.1. And also we have the Qualcomm Ethos AR9002WB1NG wireless networks adapter. So it is the adapter used for the wireless communication, and it has only one DNS servers, and its address is 10.0.0.2. So this is the wireless adapter address, and this is also the Microsoft Ethernet adapter number 2, and its DNS is DNS servers, which is only one servers, and its IP address is 192.168.0.1. So this is just one IP address is this DNS servers. So up to here our program is completed, and when you will click any key here, then this console output will be closed. Now we have to check that whether the internet connection is available or not with us. So for this purpose, we will use the win winInit.dll file. It is a built-in files in the window, so you do not need to install or to embed this DLL. So just you have to declare DLL import class, and it will be imported into your program through the DLL import function here. Then your private external static bool internet get connected states, and then is the out int connection and int value. So it is the internet get connection state function, and this will provides you that whether the connection is available or not with us here. So when this returns the true value, because it is the bool function, it will return false or true. That means that at least one of the network connection is available or connected through this computer, or this computer has a connection with one network connection. And when it provides you the false value, that means that no internet connection is available for this computer. Now, this is the GUI application examples here, which will check that whether the network connection is live or not live. So first you need two libraries. This is the using system.net.stock socket libraries. Then we have using system.runtime.interoperability service library, because we have to import the DLLs. So just we will use this library, and socket library is used for the socket programming. For example, internet get connection states function. First, we will import the DLL. Then we will, in fact, implement the static bool internet get connection function. It will check that whether the connection is available or not, and it is a bool function. That's why it will return true or false. It has two parameters: out int con and int value. So it will, in fact, check that whether the internet connection is available and it is connected. Then we have the public form1, that is in fact a constructor of our class form1, and it initializes different components. I have only one component is the button, and another component is the form here. Then we have the click event of these buttons. When you will perform the click event, that body of the event will be executed. It is a private event. That means it is only accessible in this class, which is the class form1 inherited from the form, and it will not return anything. That's why it has the void data types. And button 1 is click object senders command event ergs. E represents the parameters of the click events. Object sender means that the object which is responsible for sending the event, that is the button 1, and event ergs. E represent the data that will be sent to the click event. Now here first we declare the int out. Int out is a variable which is of integer data types. Now if internet get connection out, and here the out comma 0 double equal to true, means that if it returns the true values and true is equal to true, then message box will be shown and the connected message will be shown. Otherwise, again message box will be shown and not connected will be shown here. So when you click here and this true value is becomes true, then the internet will be available with us, internet connection, and the message will be shows that internet is connected, otherwise internet is not connected here. Now dear students, we will implement this code in our Visual Studio. For this purpose, just click on the escape button. When you escape the slides, launch your Visual Studio here. So you have to type the Visual Studio. Click on this Visual Studio option. Meanwhile, the Visual Studio will be here up for you. Then you need to create the Windows applications where you need just to drag drop one buttons controls, and then with the click events you have to do your programming logic behind that button control. So this is the flash screens of Visual Studio 2019, and first of all we will require to create a project. So here I am creating a new project. So click on this create new projects button here. Then you will be asked to type the name of the project. So the project name here will be internet connection. Then we will drag drop one buttons on the form, and then we will perform the coding here. Now we need to create the Windows application. So select the C# language here. Then just drag drop down here. Just click on the Windows Form application. Click on the next, and then you can provide the name of the application. So for example, internet connection is the name of the Windows application. Click on the create button. So when you will click on the create button, Visual Studio will create a Windows application for you. Now Visual Studio is going to create the Windows application here. Now Visual Studio has created an empty form for us. So just I will resize the form. Click on toolbar and then drag drop one button controls onto your form. Here I just drag drop one button controls. Go to the property of this buttons controls and type the text property or change the text property that network connection. Network connection is now the label over this buttons. Double click on it so that you may go towards the code here. Now this is the code here. First I need to write the libraries here. So first I will write using uh, system system.net dot sockets. This is the first library. Then we will also write the second library using system dot runtime dot interrupt services. Now our libraries has been completed. Now first we will import the DLLs here. So here we will import the DLL. So here we will first write DLL import DLL import, and then we will write a function here, and DLL import will be in the strings here. So DLL import, and when init dot DLL will be imported here. Now we will implement the function here, private extern static bool function internet get connected state, and here we will provide two parameters. That is first one is the out int con int value. Now these are two different parameters in the internet get connected state function. Now we will come down towards the events here. Here first we need to declare the uh, out is equal to 0. That is we have declared we have to make this O capital. Now here we will use the if statements. Here if internet inter that is our above function inter, you can directly copy this function and paste it here. Internet double equal to 0. So what will be equal to 0? First we need to write that out, um, out comma 0 double equal to 0, then message box dot show function. That means that network is available with us, is internet available or internet connected. Internet is connected, means that internet is connected. Okay, here you can also provide that is true. It means true, because when the true become equal to true, then internet is available. Else message box dot show internet connection is not available. Here we will write the internet connection is not available. That is not connected. Now, dear students, our program is now complete. So we will compile and run this application to test that whether the internet is available or not. So for this purpose, click on this green button to execute the program. So I click on that green button. Now program has been compiled and run. Now click on this. You can see that network is available, that is internet is connected. Again I click internet is connected. Because my internet is connected here, if I check my internet, you can see network connection is available, is connected. If I disconnect this one, now I will disconnect it. Now you can see that network is disconnected, and you can see here that no connected connection is not available here. Now if I click on the, then it will say that network is not connected, because you can see that network is not connected. You can see this message that that network is not connected. Not connected, connection are available, but that is not connected. Now if I click on this, now the message says that network internet is not connected, means that network connection is not available here. If I click here and again I click my networks connection, my network connection is professor.kadimkas.hackmefu.dir. So this is my network connection. Now it is connected again. Now if I click here, now it will say that network is available, that is internet connection is live here. So this was the program which checks that whether the network's connection is available or not, and that is in fact tested due to the wheninit.dll file. Now we will resume our slides here again. Next topic is the IP addresses. As you know that when we communicate with another computer, we use certain IP address, and every computer has its own distinct IP address. So every computer that is connected to the internet must have a globally unique IP address, and that should be a unique address. Basically, IP address is a 4-byte number which is generally written in the decimal period separated numbers such as 192.168.0.1. That is one of the IP address. So computers that connect indirectly to this IP address to their company's networks also have the IP address, but these do not need to be globally unique, only unique within the same network. So when you communicate with the globally, it is not required that these addresses should be unique. But when we communicate within the same networks, it should be unique IP address. As you know that our KUST uh, 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 network department provides us a unique IP address, and that should be unique for every student as well as for every teacher and administrative staff here. So that is the concepts of the IP address. Now we have multiple IP families. IP families are, for examples, they have multiple ranges. We have three different IP families. For example, 10 first IP family starts from 10.000 to 10.255 and it has up to 16 million computers. You can connect in one network up to 16 million computers, and that is called class A IP address. Second family starts from 172.16.0.0 to 172.31 and you can connect here 900,000 computers. That is the class B IP family. And the third one is the 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255 and you can connect 65,000 computer in that IP family, and that is called the class C IP family. So you can see that there are multiple IP families. Now my IP address is 192.168.0.1. How you can find your IP address? Just open your command prompts and type IP config. When you press enter here, that will show your IP address here. My IP address is 192.168.0.1. This is the IP address, and this is the subnet mask address, and I have no default gateway address, and also I have the Ethernet connection, and that's Ethernet connection has the IP address 81.98.59.133. So 192.168.0.1 means that my IP is lying in the class C, where the 65,000 computer can be connected with each other. And if the user exceeds then this limits, then we can use the class B. And even if that limit is in fact not sufficient, then we will use the class A when 16 million computers can be connected within one organization. Now, how to find the IP address of the computer in C sharps? Here we will write programs. We use two libraries here, system.net and system.net.sockets. So system.net class provides functionality that is similar to the Microsoft WinInit API, as we have done in the previous program. We have used WinInit API. System.net namespace provides information about the IP address here. So here is the program which finds the IP address from any URL here. So for example, if you type the www.kust.edu.pk and you click the find IP buttons, then the IP will be displayed here. Now for this purpose you need using .sys.net library also. Then it is the private void button one underscore click event objects handler event ergse. Here we have the try catch statements. In the try statement we have IP host entry host name is equal to dns.get host by name. This will take the host name to the DNS class, and the host name will be taken through the text box, and that will be stored in the host name of the IP history entry. Now it will contain the IP host entry, means that the host of the IP. Now IP address IP is equal to host name dot address list, because we have multiple host IPs in the IP host entry, so that's why we will store each and every IPs in this IP address array here. So IP address IP is equal to host name dot address list. Next is we will store the IP address in the second text box, that is text box 2.text is equal to IP0.toString. It will store the first IP. So automatically first IP will be the address of this URL here. So it will take this DNS, that is domain name service, and then for this host the IP will be displayed here, and if there is any exception will be thrown here. Now dear students, we will perform these examples, or we will develop this example in the Visual Studio. For this purpose click on the escape button and then click on the previous examples. Now click on the form here. Now you can use that form again for this example, so click on toolbox, drag drop one buttons controls. Also you need to drag drop one text box controls here. This is the one button and one text box controls. This is second text box and this is the buttons. Copy this text box for the second instance and paste it here so that another text box will be created. So this is text box 1, this is text box 2. Go to the properties of the button 2 and type here the text properties that get IP. Here IP will be provided when we will enter a URL here, then that particular URL IP will be printed here. Now double click on these buttons so that you may go towards your code. First you need to import the using system.networks library using system.net libraries. This is the using system.net library. Then now you need to write your computer logic here. So we will use the try catch statements here. Try and then the catch statements here. Catch statement will be here. In the catch statements we will write the general exception class, general exception, and if there are some problems then the exception will be raised here. So general exception ex. So ex dot print strict trace dot dot exception that is you can also write that console dot write line ex dot two strings. So now we need to write the program logics here. So we will write IP host entry. Host entry for host will be our own host and DNS DNS is in the using system.net library by host name here, and that will be obtained from the first text box. First text box will provide the host name. Host name will be the valid URL here. Now, when you provide the host name, then the computer will find out the particular IP of that related with that particular DNS host name. Now here we will write the array of the IP address. IP address array. For example, here we will say IP equal to host dot host dot. Here we will identify the IP address here. So host dot address list. Address list is in fact here a property which will provide the address is of this computer or this URL to this IP here. Now better is to write the host name because maybe that may be some results. So here now we will print the IP address and that will be printed into the second text box. So it's equal to IP. IP is the array IP 0. First IP dot to string. Two strings will be provided here. Now you can see that our program is now completed. Now we will compile and run this application. To compile and run this application, click on the start button. So I will click on the start button. When I click on the start button, the program has been executed. Now type any URL here, for example www www.kust20201.edu.pk and click on get IP. And you will click on get IP. IP of this URL will be obtained and printed here. So you can get the IP of any valid URL here. Similarly, if I change this URL, for example, www.google.com, what is the IP of the Google? So click here. When you click here, you can see that the IP of the Google is 172.217.21.36. So 172.217.221.36 is the IP of the google.com. So these programs take as input the URL and then convert that URL into the IP. And for that program, your internet connection is very much important because it communicates with this URL and then it's obtained the IP through the domain of this URL. Now we will resume our slides. Dear students, this is the end of the lectures. This is the reference book for your study purpose. The reference book is Network Programming in .NET with the C# and Visual Basics.NET by Fudge, right? So this book is very much important where you can study the network programming in the two different languages with C# and Visual Basics.NET. So hope that this book will be very much useful for you. And also if you have any question, you can post your questions through asking in the email. That my email is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will wait for your questions and will answer you as soon as I get them. Thank you very much.